For centuries, the old schools kept a text that named 5 things. Not 5 virtues, and not 5 rules. 5 stages of the road a person walks once they begin to wake, written down in order, each one described so precisely that a person reading it today still recognizes themselves inside it, including the exact hour of the day when most people stop. It was never taught openly, not because it was dangerous, but precisely because a person who can name the stage they are standing in stops believing that they've failed. Imagine being handed, for the first time, the actual names for something you have lived through your whole life without ever having a word for it. That text names 5. You are standing inside one of them right now, and you almost certainly cannot name which. That is not carelessness. Nobody sees the stage they are in, because a stage does not look like a stage from the inside. It looks like your life. It looks like your personality, your circumstances, your reasonable opinions about what is possible for you. And almost everybody who walks this road stops in the same one of the 5. On the surface, they stop for different reasons. Life got busy. It stopped feeling real. It was probably imagination to begin with. But underneath every one of those reasons is the same point on the road. And almost nobody ever finds out that it was a point on a road at all. They think it was them. They think they failed. That place has a name, and it has had one for 1,600 years. A man living alone in the Egyptian desert wrote down exactly how it feels from inside, down to the hour of the day it arrives, and people still recognize themselves in his description without knowing where it came from. It is the 4th of the 5, and we are going to walk all of them. Because awakening is not one event. That is the first thing almost everybody gets wrong, and it causes an enormous amount of unnecessary suffering. People wait for a single moment that will divide their life into before and after, and when the moment comes and then fades, they decide that nothing happened at all. It is not a moment. It has stages. The stages have an order, and each one has its own signs, its own difficulty, and its own specific way of stopping you. And somewhere in you there is already a suspicion that you are not where you were a year ago. Not in your circumstances, but underneath them. Something in how you see has moved, and there is no word for it in ordinary conversation, so you have never said it out loud to anybody. If that is true, you are already standing somewhere on this road, and the only real question is, where? In the teaching on the unforgetting, we walked through the practice of removing what was never yours, so that the memory of the soul could rise. Many of you wrote to say that something moved, and many of you asked the same question afterwards in different words. Is this it? Has it started? Where am I in all of this? That is what this teaching answers. Together, we will walk through 5 stages. At each one, I will describe what it feels like from inside, give you the signs that tell you whether you are standing there, name the trap that catches most people at that exact point, and give you one practice that belongs to that stage and no other. By the end, you will know where you are. And knowing where you are is not a small thing, because almost all the pain on this road comes from applying the medicine of one stage while standing in another. Before we go further, one thing plainly. Nobody moves through these in a straight line. You will pass through some quickly and sit in others for years. And you will find yourself back in an earlier one after you were certain you had left it. That is not failure. The road turns back on itself, and every serious tradition says so. Let us begin. The first stage is the sleep. This is where almost everyone lives, and the strangest thing about it is that from inside it feels completely normal. In the sleep, you are your thoughts. There is no space between what happens to you and what you become. Somebody says something, and you are angry, and it does not occur to you that the anger arrived rather than that you produced it. You believe your reactions are you. Life feels like weather. Things happen, and you respond, and the responding is automatic, and afterwards you construct reasons for it that sound convincing. You are certain you are choosing, and almost nothing you did today was chosen. Plato described this exactly 2,500 years ago in the most famous image in philosophy. People chained in a cave, facing a wall, watching shadows, taking the shadows for the whole world. What people forget about that story is the detail that matters. The prisoners are not suffering. They are comfortable. They have contests about who can identify the shadows fastest, and they respect whoever wins. The Sufis have a word for this condition, ghafla, which is usually translated as heedlessness, though the sense is closer to being absent from your own life while it happens. In the Vedic tradition, it is avidya, which is not stupidity, but a particular kind of not seeing that includes not seeing that you are not seeing. How do you know you are here? Ask yourself these. When somebody irritates you, is there any gap at all between the irritation and your response? Can you remember what you were thinking about an hour ago? When you explain your own behavior, are the explanations always ready immediately? Does your life feel like something you are living or something that is happening to you? And the trap of this stage is the most complete of all the traps because it does not feel like a trap. It feels like being a normal, functional person. The sleep does not hurt. That is precisely why nobody leaves it voluntarily. The first practice is the single reaction, and it takes 2 minutes. The aim of this practice is to create the very first gap between you and what moves you. How is it done? Once a day, at the end of the day, choose one moment where you reacted. Any moment. Somebody said something and something rose in you. Write down 3 things. What happened, what rose in you, and what you would have done if there had been 3 seconds in between. Do not try to change anything. Do not resolve to do better. Simply write the 3 lines. What does this give you? Nothing at first. And then one day the gap appears while you are inside the situation instead of afterwards. That gap is the beginning of everything, and it cannot be forced. It is grown by noticing. The second stage is the crack. Something breaks and the life you built stops fitting. Sometimes it arrives through loss, an illness, an ending, a death, a job that collapses. Sometimes it arrives with nothing visible at all, which is more disorienting because you are standing in a life that has everything in it, and you feel a wrongness you cannot justify to anyone. What has actually happened is that the story stopped working. The account you had of who you are and why you are doing all of this has developed a crack in it, and light is coming through the crack, and you cannot unsee it. This stage is uncomfortable in a specific way. You are not yet anywhere new, and you can no longer live where you were. Everything still looks the same from outside. Nobody notices. You go to the same places and answer the same questions, and something in you is standing slightly apart from all of it, watching, unconvinced. The Greeks had a word that Christianity later took over: metanoia. It is usually translated as repentance, which is a shame because the older sense is simply a turning of the mind, not guilt. A change of direction, which begins with the discovery that the direction you were going was not chosen. The desert monks described the same thing as a piercing, a sudden sharpness that arrives without invitation, usually at an ordinary moment, and leaves you unable to continue as before. How do you know you are here? Ask yourself these. Has something you used to want stopped being interesting, without being replaced by anything? Do conversations that used to feel normal now feel unbearable? Have you found yourself crying at something small and disproportionate? Is there a sentence you have not said out loud to anyone because saying it would change your life? And the trap of this stage is that almost everybody tries to repair the crack. You will be told, with real kindness, that you need a holiday, a new relationship, a change of job, more sleep, more discipline. And you will try those things, and some of them will help for a while, and the crack will still be there. Because the crack is not a malfunction. It is the first thing in years that has told you the truth. The second practice is the honest sentence, and it takes 5 minutes, done once. The aim of this practice is to name what has actually stopped fitting. How is it done? Sit alone with paper. Write this at the top. Something in my life no longer fits, and it is this. Then write until you find it, and keep writing past the first 3 answers, because the first 3 will be about other people. You will know you have arrived when the sentence makes you uncomfortable to look at. Then put the paper somewhere and do not act on it for a week. This is important. The crack does not require an immediate decision, and the decisions made in the first week of it are almost always dramatic and almost always wrong. What does this give you? It turns a vague misery into one clear sentence, and a clear sentence can be worked with, while a vague misery only spreads. The third stage is the undressing. Here, the identity begins to come off. You built a self out of labels, and you did it honestly and without noticing. Your work, your role in your family, your beliefs, your politics, the group you belong to, the story of your childhood, the list of things you are good at and bad at. All of it feels like you, and none of it is. In this stage, that construction begins to come apart, and it is disorienting in a way nothing prepares you for, because you cannot see what is underneath while the layers are still coming off. This is where the unforgetting works. If you have done those practices, this is the stage they belong to. And if you have not seen that teaching, it is the one to go to next, because the whole method belongs to this stage and to no other. The link is in the pinned comment below. Clearing what is not yours. Watching which voices in your head were installed rather than born. The whole method sits here, and if you tried to use it in the first stage, it would have felt like nothing, because there is no undressing before there is a crack. The old schools mapped this with unusual precision. The Gnostics described the ascending soul giving back a garment at each sphere until nothing borrowed remained. The Vedantic method is one instruction repeated endlessly, not this, applied to every single thing you take yourself to be, until what cannot be removed is standing there alone. The Sufis call the dissolving fana, the passing away of the constructed self, and they are careful to say it is a passing away of something that was never real, rather than the destruction of something that was. How do you know you are here? Ask yourself these. Have you noticed a thought and wondered whose it actually is? Are there opinions you have defended for years that you now cannot find any feeling for? Have people close to you said that you have changed in a tone that was not a compliment? When you try to describe yourself, does the description feel like reciting something rather than reporting something? And the trap here is the emptiness. When enough comes off, there is a period where nothing has arrived to replace it, and it feels like loss rather than freedom. People panic at this point and grab the nearest available identity, usually a spiritual one. They exchange one costume for another and call it awakening. And now they are the person who meditates, which is exactly as constructed as the person they were before. The undressing is not finished until you can be nobody in particular for an afternoon without it frightening you. The third practice is the 10 sentences, and it takes 10 minutes. The aim of this practice is to separate what you are from what you were handed. How is it done? Write 10 sentences beginning with I am. Write quickly, without thinking, and do not censor them. Then go through the list and ask one question of each. Where did this come from? For each, write either given or found. Given means somebody put it there. Found means you arrived at it yourself, alone, and it survived. Most people find that 8 of the 10 are given. Some find 10. Do not throw anything away. You are not required to stop being those things. You are only required to know which ones were issued to you. What does this give you? The beginning of an actual answer to the question the whole path is asking. And the 2 or 3 that come back marked found are worth more than everything else on the page. The fourth stage is the drought. This is the stage almost nobody talks about, and it is where most people leave the road. Something opened. You knew without any doubt, and the knowing was clean and complete and needed no defense. And then, over weeks, it withdrew. The practice went dry. The reading stopped feeding you. What had been living became a set of ideas you agree with and cannot feel. And into that dryness comes a thought that is far more dangerous than any doubt you had in the first stage. It says, I made it up. I want you to hear how old this is, because that alone will help you. In the 4th century, a monk named Evagrius, living in the Egyptian desert, described what he called the noonday demon. It does not come at the beginning when everything is fire. It comes in the middle of the day and in the middle of the path. It arrives as heaviness, restlessness, a sudden clarity that this is not working and that you should be doing something more useful. It makes hours feel long. It makes you look at the door. His instruction was one line: do not leave the cell during that hour. Not because leaving is forbidden, but because the heaviness passes, and everyone who leaves during it leaves for a reason that sounds completely convincing. 1,200 years later, a Spanish monk described the same territory and gave it the name most people now know, the Dark Night. He was explicit that it is not punishment and not regression. It is what happens when the sweetness is withdrawn so that the person can learn to walk without it. And the Sufis, as usual, made the distinction sharpest. They separate the hal from the maqam. A hal is a state. It descends on you. You did not build it. You cannot summon it, and it leaves in its own time. A maqam is a station, a place on the road you have actually reached and now stand on. It was built rather than given, and you do not fall out of it in a bad week, because it is not weather. It is ground. Here is the teaching, and it explains your entire experience. The whole purpose of practice is to turn states into stations. The light comes briefly so that you know what is there, then it withdraws so that you can build it. Everyone mistakes the state for the arrival, and it was the invitation. How do you know you are here? Ask yourself these. Did something real happen to you that you can no longer feel? Have you started to wonder whether you exaggerated it? Has your practice become something you postpone with excellent reasons? Do you feel further from it now than you did before any of this began? And the trap of this stage is the interpretation, not the dryness. The dryness is normal and universal. What ends people is the conclusion they draw from it, which is that they were fooling themselves. And that conclusion arrives in the driest week, wearing perfect logic. The fourth practice is the kept appointment, and it takes 10 minutes. The aim of this practice is to build ground where there is currently no feeling. How is it done? Choose one time of day and one length, and make both small enough that you can keep them on your worst day. 10 minutes is plenty, 5 is enough. Then keep it, every day, feeling nothing. Not increasing it when it feels dead, and not extending it when it feels good. Mark each day on a paper calendar with a single line. You are not tracking your experience. You are tracking your attendance. What does this give you? Everything. This is the practice that converts what you were shown into what you have. Every station anybody has ever reached was built out of days exactly like these, and there is no other method. Nobody has ever found one. And I will say this plainly, because it is the part of this road that humbled me most. I could produce openings, and I became good at it. What I could not do, for years, was still be the same person 11 days later. I blamed my sincerity and my discipline and my worthiness, everything except the real reason, which is that a state is not supposed to stay, and that keeping it is a separate skill with its own method that nobody had taught me. The fifth stage is the ordinary, and this is not what you expect it to be. People imagine the final stage as permanent bliss, a person glowing, floating slightly above their circumstances. That is not it. That is a state, and states pass. What actually arrives is quieter and much stranger. The thing you were reaching for stops being an experience you visit and becomes the floor you stand on. And because it is the floor, you stop noticing it. In the same way you do not notice the ground while walking. You have difficult days. You are irritated in traffic. You grieve when someone dies, fully, without pretending to be above it. Nothing is suppressed, and nothing is performed. But underneath all of it, something remains steady that the day does not reach, and you are no longer negotiating with your own existence. The Zen tradition has an image for this that I find more honest than anything else on the subject. A sequence of 10 pictures showing the whole path, from the first search to the end. And the 10th picture, the final one, is not a person in radiant light. It is a man walking into the marketplace, ordinary looking, carrying nothing special, going among people. The title of the picture is about entering the market with open hands. The point is unmistakable. The path ends where it started, in an ordinary life with an ordinary person. and the only difference is invisible from outside. How do you know you are here? Ask yourself these. Has it stopped mattering to you whether other people believe any of this? Can you spend a day without needing to feel spiritual at any point in it? When something breaks in your life, is there something underneath that does not break with it? Have you noticed that you have stopped narrating your own progress, and there is a trap even here, and it is the last one? It is nostalgia for the dramatic stages. Some people, standing in a life that is finally steady, miss the intensity and go looking for another opening and mistake the search for depth. The end of the road is not exciting. That is not a defect in it. The fifth practice is the 3 touches, and it takes 6 seconds a day. The aim of this practice is to make wakefulness ordinary rather than special. How is it done? Choose 3 moments that already happen every day. Crossing a threshold, sitting down, putting your hands in water. At each one, come back for 2 seconds. Notice where you are and that you are here. That is the entire practice. 2 seconds, 3 times. What does this give you? Wakefulness is built by frequency and not by duration. 3 touches a day for a month does more than 1 long session a week, because you are teaching yourself that this is available inside an ordinary life rather than only in a quiet room. So, which stage are you in? Here is the rule, and it is not the one you expect. You are not in the stage you found most beautiful. You are in the stage whose trap you recognized. If you read the description of the sleep and felt nothing much, you are in it. If your chest tightened at the crack, you are standing in the crack. If the emptiness of the undressing frightened you, that is where you are. If the drought made you want to argue with me, you are in the drought, and that reaction is the most reliable signal in this entire teaching. Discomfort is the marker. What you can see clearly in yourself, you are already halfway out of. What you skipped over quickly is where you live. And one more thing that matters. Most people are in 2 stages at once, in different areas of their life. Awake in their work and asleep in their family. Undressed in their beliefs and fully clothed in their relationships. This is normal, and it is worth writing down separately for each area because the medicine differs. Now hear the mistakes, because there are 4, and everyone makes at least 2. The first is applying the wrong stages medicine. Clearing practices given to someone in the sleep do nothing at all because there is no crack yet to work through. Comfort given to somebody in the drought insults them, and someone in the crack does not need answers. They need one honest sentence. The second is treating the drought as failure. It is the most common reason people leave, and it happens at the exact moment when the real building was about to begin. The third is collecting stages. There is a strong urge to work out how advanced you are and to place yourself as high as possible. That urge belongs entirely to the constructed self, and the constructed self is precisely what the third stage takes off you. The fourth is expecting a straight line. You will fall back. You will be in the fifth stage in one part of your life and the first stage in another, and you will pass through the drought more than once. And none of that means you lost anything. Now, the principles. Because 5 stages are a map, and a map is not a way of living. The first principle is know where you are standing. Read your own signs honestly and reread them every few months because the answer changes. The second principle is Do the work of your stage and not of another. This alone will save you years. The third principle is keep the appointment. Not the feeling, the appointment. Turn up at the same time in the same way, regardless of what is present. The soul does not respond to enthusiasm. It responds to being expected. The fourth principle is stay through the noonday hour. The heaviness in the middle is not a signal to stop. It is the exact point where states become stations, and everyone who leaves during it leaves for an excellent reason. The fifth principle is aim at the ordinary, not at experiences and not at intensity. The road ends in a normal life, lived by a person who is actually present in it, and anything that promises you more than that is selling you a state. Let us bring it together. 5 stages. The sleep, where you are your reactions. The crack, where the story stops fitting. The undressing, where what was handed to you comes off. The drought, where the light withdraws and the real building starts. And the ordinary, where it becomes the floor instead of the view. 5 practices. The single reaction for 2 minutes. The honest sentence once. The 10 sentences for 10 minutes. The kept appointment for 10 minutes daily. And 3 touches of 2 seconds each. And 1 rule that carries all of it. What comes to you freely will leave freely, and what you want to keep must be built. Now, the last thing, and it is the reason for the whole teaching. Wherever you are not behind. There is no schedule for this, and nobody is ahead of you. The stage you are in is not a grade, and it is not a measure of your worth. And the person who appears further along may simply have had an easier crack. The road is not a competition, and it never was. And the fact that you are asking the question at all means the sleep has already been broken. Because nobody in the first stage wonders which stage they are in. That question is itself the crack. So do not read this and feel that you are somewhere disappointing. Read it and locate yourself, and then do the small work that belongs to where you are standing, at the same time, on the days when nothing is happening. That is the whole method. Everything else is decoration. Subscribe if any part of this landed, so that whatever comes next on this road does not have to find you by accident. A like costs you nothing and tells me something real. So use it the way you would nod at a stranger who just said the thing you have been thinking for months. There is somebody in your life standing exactly where you stood before this video. Send it to them without a message attached. Let the video do the talking. And before you go, put 1 number in the comments, from 1 to 5, the stage you actually caught yourself standing in tonight, not the one that would look better. Somebody scrolling through those numbers later will see yours and stop being the only one who admitted it.